Okay, so I'm stopping partway through to comment on the video response from Remember the Diamonds. Um, I really like it so far. Um, a couple of things that I want to say, though, are that we don't think that, I don't think, and the people that, I talk to about this issue here on YouTube, my crew, quote unquote, we don't think that if it's legalized and regulated, it's going to be all cherry blossoms. We think it's going to take vigilance to make sure that the people in these businesses and in this profession are still safe and adequately represented. Um, Divinity, as an example, works in the she works in a strip club, and she and I have talked numerous times about how management isn't doing anybody any big favors, and they let people get away with accepting money for a little extra lewdness, let's say, and then that makes all of the girls who don't want to do that sort of stuff either they're at a disadvantage, and that plays out in all sorts of ways. We know that if well we've one of the things that I say is that this brings me back to the whole stigma thing, which I've got a problem with, is that anybody who's willing to own one of these businesses, they're put through the grinder, and you're either going to have a frickin' saint at the end, or you're going to have a demon at the end. You're going to have someone really, really good who's willing to put up with all of that stuff that they have to go through to get the licensing and blah, 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 get all that stuff done, along with the community outcry that there might be that, no, we don't want a strip club in our area, or what have you. If good people were encouraged and supported in in any industry, really any industry, it can only be better for all of us. The problem is that in the world, the cruel rise to the top. They say the cream rises to the top. Well, and it seems to me that cruel people rise to the top because they're willing to step on other people along the way. Um, in any industry that there is, and we can see this with regular labor trafficking, where people are trafficked into industries where they're textiles and whatnot, where those businesses are entirely legal. It's entirely legal to sell and wear clothing, and yet people are still taken advantage of and exploited in those industries. And it takes vigilance. And while we're all being distracted with sex, 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 and the sex part of all the trafficking, and the sex part of the prostitution, it's 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 leaving people to be exploited in the most reprehensible ways. And you know that's one thing. Um, the other thing I wanted to mention was the word you used the word normalized, which I don't like that word. I don't want it to be normalized. I want it to be talked about and discussed and understood what it is, so that people can make informed choices about what they want to do, about what they can do, about what they should do, about what's best for them. Um, and I said in my response to Bob's paradoxical experiment, that it wouldn't matter if it was totally legal and normalized and whatever, if it was the greatest, considered the greatest thing on earth. I know that there's still people who can't do it. It's a very personal thing, and it takes a certain sort of um, mindset, to be able to flourish. And well, so that's basically it up till now, and I'm only like 3 minutes in, and I've done a 5-minute recording. I'll be doing good today. Wow. Yeah. So that's the two things there. We don't expect cherry blossoms. We expect we're going to have to do constant pruning and constant upkeep and normalize. I think is a very that's a word that needs to be talked about. What do we mean normalized? Does normalized mean bad, or can normalized mean uh, you know safe and and you know there's a lot of things in this world that are being normalized that a lot of people don't want to have normalized. Well, I think people are suffering too. I think people suffer because they have no rights. And I am particularly concerned about the US because it's where I live. I live in Arizona. I live right on the border with Mexico. I see um I live in Maricopa County where Joe Arpaio is the sheriff, and I see a lot of problems where the people who come here to work are made the scapegoats, where there's already been specific laws passed supposed to hold the employer responsible for doing illegal hiring, but it never does. It always ends up being just people that are taken and sent, and I'm talking about mothers who have children. And these mothers are just shipped off to the border and dropped off, even if they are American citizens, and it takes them, however long to get back. I mean, it's just so yeah, and I'm very concerned about the U.S. because we have a particular state system set up of state laws where every state can interpret these laws the way that they want to. They can adjust them. They can pass them in their own little areas the way that they want to, and it puts all of the power in the hands of the authorities. And in the U.S., we have these, parental notification laws about abortion. We have the Mann Act, that's what all this is under. It's written underneath the Mann Act. This is all part of the Mann Act, which has led to a lot of trouble throughout the years. When people stop being vigilant about what is in the laws, trouble happens. And that's the one thing that I could say pisses me off the most, is that people, they're just not vigilant. They take shit at face value all the time, and they can't. They can't, because the evil powers that be, they know we take shit at face value, so they make sure to put it in our fucking face. It turns out it's a bunch of fucking lies and bullshit. And I know these people are suffering because they're doing this because they need money. I've read story after story after story after story after story of some young mother who has to leave her children and go to another country and engage in prostitution. And while she's doing it of her own free will, I know it's not. I know that if she had her druthers, she'd be sitting home with her babies. I know that. So what can we do to make it easier for her? It's not going to be taking that one choice away from her or making that one more dangerous or more difficult. It's going to be, first, making that one safer. Second, opening up all of the other cans of worms that makes these problems happen. It's the financial industries. It's the fucking lending industries. It's the global economics that makes this happen. Look at Haiti and their debt situation with France. How much of the suffering there is directly grown out of that? And then you have people suffering, and they have to make these choices, and then we take their choices away. And I understand that this is the bottom of the barrel. This is where it really gets real. This is where people are making those fucking decisions that they would, under any other circumstance, not want to have to make. They would not make. It's not like I understand that. I understand that. We all understand that. because we were in those positions. You know, it's just it gets very frustrating because it's like because we did it and it helped us, or we say it wasn't the worst thing ever, or that it turned out to be a decent thing for us. That doesn't mean we think it's going to be decent for everybody. We know that there are people for whom this was a terrible thing. I've seen it in front of my very eyes. We've all have. These are the people we want to help. These are the people that we were powerless to help when we were in that position, and we want to help them now. And it's about what are the job opportunities when someone tries to come out of this work. It's so stigmatized. People, I mean, above and beyond that, there's the credit laws, there's the tax laws, that you can't even write this down as an occupation. You have to somehow have the wherewithal to plan ahead, 3, 4, 5, 10 years to what you want to be doing when you come out of this business, and plan accordingly for all of your records. I mean, it's and there's no services set up. There really aren't. There's no, A Lonely Apprentice, he had that series of videos about education for profit. And I think it was part 3, they had a section there where they were taking people from the criminal justice system who were supposedly in rehabs and hooking them up with education loans. And this is taking people who have no debt. They have no debt. They might not have the best credit histories, they might not have the best everything else, but they have no debt. And now you leave them with their everything else plus debt. It was just, and these people were doing that shit for profit. That's fucked up. And yet the rest of the world would look at them as if they're heroes because they give these people the chance to have debt. I mean, it's and yeah, we have to be accurate. I mean, you said earlier that you'd like to talk about the details. Well, if we're going to talk about the details, we need to know what they are. And the definitions in the codes, I mean, that they've got it now where, yeah, you talked about condoms before. Well, yeah, they can use condoms, the amount of condoms that you're carrying, and use that as evidence that they suspect you were planning on engaging in prostitution. And those sorts of laws, I mean, that's ridiculous. We should be encouraging people to carry boatloads of condoms, shouldn't we? Some religions say no. The religions that are in charge of the governments in my country say no. It's very frustrating. Okay, the brothel situation. See, I don't take brothels for granted. When I was growing up, I never, it was, I mean, it's pretty much unheard of. I've never seen one to this day that I know of. And there's actually been some recent stuff in, I think it's Australia. They passed some laws, anti-sex trafficking laws, anti-commercial sex laws, where they're not allowed to work in groups. And they prefer to work in groups because it's safer. Because it's safer to work in groups. It's the buddy system. Anybody can tell you that. Girl Scouts will frickin' tell you that. Right? It's safer in a group. Okay, and I'm apparently at almost 15 minutes, so thank you for your response, and bye.